And now, next meeting, it will be with Jérôme Gorin. Jérôme Gorin is a technologist at CNIL. It's the National Commission on Informatics and Liberties. And the mission of the CNIL is to ensure that data privacy laws are applied, including regulation like the GDPR. So, hello, Jérôme. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine. Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly. So
Perfect.
I will give you the mic because you're going to speak about the GDPR developer guide that you've created at the CNIL to help companies and developer implement GDPR and understand GDPR. So the word is yours.
Thank you very much, Jude. So yes, I'm working at the CNIL as an engineer and more specifically in the Link team. So today I'm going to give a very short presentation of 20 minutes on the GDPR developer guide and explain how its contents can help to instill a data protection culture in teams, whatever its size. So first, let me explain what is Link and how these guides aim to achieve the general mission at the CNIL, which can be gathered in these three keywords: explore, exchange, and experiment. Link has started as a brand 10 years ago to bring a more informal voice to data protection in discrepancy to the general mission of the CNIL, that is mainly to support data protection and to sanction bad habits. We were all convinced at this time that data protection and innovation are not incompatible notions. Actually, we believe quite the inverse. Innovation in the digital society should not deprive our liberty. We must remain master of the technologies and not the inverse. Hence, this sentence that I did not translate, but could be translated as the CNIL is not an hindrance for innovating in circle. Anyway, 10 years ago, this way of thinking innovation was quite revolutionary, or let's say not in the spirit of the time, especially if you remember that in 2010, a 25 years old chief executive of the world's most popular social network said that privacy was no longer a social norm. In 2019, this same chief executive, which is now 35 years old, and which has collided with many worries, explained to the crowd that the future is private in the developer conference. I can only hope that is sincere. Anyway, with the help of our blog, so it's link.cnil.fr and our IP reports through this link brand, we were able to explore the future of digital society and better anticipate the impact of the use of innovation on privacy and freedoms. We develop also a place to exchange informally with actors of the digital society, companies, institutions, civil society, etc., to raise awareness among new issues related to ethics, freedom, and privacy. And we also develop many experiments as open source tools. Our demo is hosted in our showroom in order to better comprehend emerging digital uses. We are now a dedicated team. We started 3 months ago, so we are a separated team. We are not only a brand at Link, and we are all composed of sociologists, technologists, and designers. And if we stop looking at the rear view mirror, there is a list of all our IP reports that delve further into several core themes related to privacy compared to our article published on our blog. So the link.cnil.fr. All of them can be found on the CNIL website, and only some of them has been translated in English. To give you a short overview of what is contained inside this IP reported. The first one, so the IP1, has been published in 2012 and offer an exploration of the many issues related to digital services and privacy we may have to face in 2020, among which the explosion of the use of social networks, which increasingly contribute to the expression of individual and moreover are more consuming personal data. The change in the status for smartphone in connection with the increasing use of mobile internet, the standardization of automatic collection of personal data, the growing porosity between public and private life, especially in the professional field due to the deterioration of work and the end of compartmentalized time. And I really think that 8 years later, between 2012 and 2020, thinking on these issues seems as important as ever. So that was for the IP1 that you can find on our website. The IP2, the second IP report, analyzed the implication of the wearable and continuous digitalization of our body on our privacy. The third one is Muse of Creation. It analyzes recommendation system and what's behind the magic of algorithm. The IP4 is about sharing. So it's diverted to the notion of sharing in the digital society, its spring and its counterpart. And it debates on value sharing and its economic model. The IP5 is about smart cities, where the consideration of individual is still in its infancy. The sixth one is shaping choices. It addresses interface and its ability to manipulate choices. And we start to analyze what are to try to set definition to dark patterns. The seventh one is about civic tech. It explores the issue of personal data in relation between democracy, technology, and citizen participation. And the last one, Publicis carry out an exploratory analysis of the letter received by the CNIL. It aims to understand what determines the use of right given by the GDPR. And it also help to understand the perception of this person on the collection and the dissemination of the personal data as a threat to their privacy. And I can only urge you to read our work, to go on your blog, link.cnil.fr. So talking about experiments, we get more stuck in now. We develop many open source tools that you can find on GitHub, which are mainly targeted to raise awareness on data being collected unduly. To give some example, you can find CookieBiz, which is a browser that allows you to visualize the submerged part of the iceberg when browsing the internet, which is cookie being used to track your habit and your interest. We also analyze 1,000 websites, which has the highest audience in France, according to Alexa, and prove that many websites were using trackers without asking questions to users, and sometimes delivering this information to more than 50 advertising companies. We also did some experiments on the smartphone, which are compared to the web acting in an opaque manner. We showed that geolocalization was the queen among smart device data being accessed 1 time per minute by Facebook and 10 times per minute by Google. We also published several studies on digital advertising ecosystem and to exploit the infinite complexity of the communication that are done by real-time bidding for displaying targeted ads. You can find all of them on our repository on GitHub, which is written in the link in these pages. But to come back to today's topic, which is the GDPR, the developer guide, we deliver it as a way to raise awareness and the power in the hand of developer and to share good practice for developing a data protection culture when building new services. So what I've put over there is a few examples of errors that has been that have been caused by developer, and that was publicly available, that was released on the news, and they were starting points of major breaches on many services. So to read some of them, so the first one was about personal data that that was exposed because a Google Cloud Storage bucket was not configured with access control. The second one was a main French provider that by changing simply a URL allows to access billions of contract, of invoices, of their customers. A very famous one was a credential that was put on the GitHub platform, in the source code of the GitHub platform, and that allows to access all the personal data that was stored on the services. Another one was someone who has misconfigured an API case. So there was one configuration about S3 bucket, non-vulnerability, and other patches. And all of them, of this error are conducted to notify breaches to the CNIL, and sometimes as conducted, there were an enforcement conducted by the CNIL to this company. And you can think that this error could concern small companies, but it's not the case at all. Some of them are big tech companies, and these breaches can involve hundreds, thousands of millions of users. And you know that I'm a developer too, so I really know how it works. I mean, when you're developing, you are always pushed to produce digital services as quickly. As for example, it's not very original, but I took this diagram from SKCD, which reflects this infernal cycle we all do when we are programming. We are still compulsively having a try on a compiler of our interpreter in the hope that our code will work at once. And sometimes it does. And you know that programming is a bottomless pit, and we are all seeking salvation, Stack Overflow. But is that really safe? I mean, according to the Stack Overflow blog, researchers found that main popular code taken from Stack Overflow were containing a bug, and I will answer at the end to Mehdi. The Stack Overflow, a lot of code are containing bugs, and which of some of them can lead to serious data breach, such as uncontrolled memory allocation or improper input validation. I mean, many companies could be sitting on a time bomb with no one inside to trap the perfect skill for defusing it. And the GDPR developer guide doesn't give really a straight solution to mitigate these issues. However, it proposes to developers to take a step back when they are programming. I mean, I think that, I mean, what are the threatening risks on the project I'm currently working on, and how to mitigate these threats. And the solution are not only technological, it involves organization matter. It's also required to consider to use the right tool to protect data, for instance, the right library for doing encryption or collecting input. And you also have to consider giving back the power to the user. I mean, being transparent and give awareness on what's going on in the background of your digital services. And that's what all GDPR is about. Although it's a legal text, it should be applied to all digital services. And the CNIL produced many guides that offer a variety of guidelines and how this legal text should be completely used in a specific domain, such as health, human resources, or many guidelines for data retention, guidelines for putting in place security, to conduct privacy impact assessment. And we try to collate all these texts into a single guide of 30 pages as an introduction to the exigence or the requirement of the GDPR without undermining them, which was quite a big work. And these requirements were compiled into 17 sheets that goes through how to identify personal data, prepare your development, secure your development, manage your source code, how to manage the architecture, secure your website, minimize the data collection, managing user profile, control your library and SDK, etc. So all this sheet will give you an overview of what you have to think on before diving into a project. And I will not have the time to go into the detail on all the good advice which are given by this sheet, but anyway, the global philosophy is really to not go along towards coding. When you start a project, you just have to know about the legislation required you to what the legislation required you to do before releasing your services, and before it's too late, when the service is already running or close to being production, to be conscious of the data you are collecting about user and the risk that could happen in case of breaches, to identify the right services to handle this data and to prioritize action to be put in place in order to place the right safeguards to manage risk. It also implies to put the right process, including thinking of your organization in case of something happen. And finally, you have to document everything from your code to your process in place in order to not be disconcerted in case of something happens. And of course, it's as any topics on security, it's a continuous delivery. So it implies to review this process regularly. And as a small scoop, we delivered today, just before the conference, a new version of this guide, the 2.0, that includes many improvements. I mean, we have doubled the size, or the size, the number of pages of this guide. It contains now sample of code to illustrate what is required. We are giving the advice on the library to use, how to implement an authentication, for instance, checking passwords. And all of this, we also have new section about how to collect consent in your application or your website, how to measure audience, how to take benefit from the exemption that we put in place. We also include recommendation on cloud services and how to use API from other companies. We finally take all the knowledge base we have from the notification that we received from the CNIL, all the data breaches notification that we have, and we list them and provide many means to avoid them. And we also collected the many returns we had on this guide to improve it further. So this guide is provided on GitHub. So on our repository, it's on the top of our repository. I mean, it's the more popular code that we have on our repository. It's free to use. It's open source and it's license free. It's GPL free. It's also imply that you are open to give any feedback on it, and for instance, through tickets or to propose new contribution through pull requests. All this contribution will be reviewed by our expert before publication, and we make the most to answer all the feedback, and I mean all what you can say will be able for us to clarify the expectation of the GDPR. So every time you will do a comment, we will read it and we will send these comments to a person which is an expert. So it can be a lawyer, it can be an expert on cryptography, it can be an expert on a password, and this person will review it and we will answer to you. And we hope that we will always be able to answer you. So it's 20 minutes already, so I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I will now collect all the questions that you have on the guide.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jérôme. So you've done your one more thing moment with your surprise announcement. So I hope everybody is happy in the chat. So yes, as you saw, Mehdi as a question, he asked more than guide. Isn't it tools that we need? And if yes, what could be these tools, or maybe what are if some of them exist, what are they?
And thank you very much for this question. That's an excellent question. I mean, that was all the objective of this new revision is to give the right tool. They are all open source. They are all free, and the, 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 the goal of giving this tool is sometimes I mean, most of the developers are doing error because they didn't know that this kind of tool was existing, or they didn't know how to configure it easy. I mean, I was speaking about Stack Overflow during this presentation because in my mind, the goal of this guide is to have something similar to Stack Overflow, but with code that is safe to use, with library that has been recognized by the ANSI, by us as safe to use.
That's what
And
we've
more
done
than a
when
guide,
you.
we really need this this tool and to know this tool. And it's not it doesn't cost anything to use this tool instead of using like professional one, for instance.
So yeah, when you speak about safe code, it's the code samples you put in the new GDPR developer guide.
Exactly.
Okay,
That's it.
and yeah, go on.
No, no, I finished.
um, and oh yeah, my other question. So you announced this 2.0 developer guide. So did you receive feedbacks from the dev communities about the version one of the dev guide? And if yes, what kind of feedbacks and from which kind of developer in which kind of companies?
Actually, we have received many feedback. I mean, maybe more than 50, or I will have to check on the repository. A lot of them was about misunderstanding on the GDPR itself, for instance, using the right legal basis, which is not always very simple depending on the case. And a lot of them was about the tools to do trackings. For instance, I mean, Google is one of the most used tool, and to have like to have a very clear explanation about should I ask for consent, how should I parameterize this tool. So every time that we receive this kind of um, this kind of question, then we had to think about how to make it even more clear, because sometimes it's quite hard for the CNIL to say that, for instance, don't use Google Analytics without consent because it's a brand, because it's a specific tool. We are more free. We have a free voice inside this guide. So on this guide, we have said that this tool is correct, this tool is not correct, this
Okay.
tool is not well parameterized, and there is one issue that we are still working on, which is still open on the GDPR developer guide, and we hope that we will be able to answer it as quickly as we can.
All right, and maybe last question. Have you seen like a growing interest in privacy concerns in I don't know in these last months or last years? Is this something that developers, companies take more into account and contact the CNIL to be sure they are compliant or they are doing good things for privacy?
Yeah. I mean, I've made many presentation of this guide on companies, like big companies, for instance, for EDF, which is the big electrical companies. The I think that the goal of the guide was really to raise awareness about that developer was central to have something which is safe. And now it's a very nice tool to do this link, to do this communication link with private company. And we see more and more interest because we are speaking to the right person. I mean, we get out all these legal requirements, which are very hard to understand if you are not a lawyer. And we speak to the person who are really into the concrete stuff, and they were very grateful to have this information, this clear information.
All right. Thank you very much, Jérôme.